What's up, gamers? We are back with some more modern action, and this time we're going to be showing off some decks that, well, one of the decks we've seen on the camera and the channel quite a bit, which is that, of course, Golgari Yawgmoth list. But the Dimir Faeries list, we got to play it quite a bit when we were testing out and doing some MTGO content. It started out as a Dimir Fairy / Death Shadow build. We've seen it on camera as well. And I have since sort of pivoted it and moved it and twisted it a little bit more to being almost like a pure Dimir Fairy build here. So I still haven't picked up my Bitter Blossom Bears. Is that the one? The flag, the creature that's a Bitter Blossom. I'm pretty sure it's Bitter Blossom Bears or Flag Bearers or something. I don't know. So I still haven't picked that up, but you know, it runs classic Bitter Blossom, harder to remove and get rid of, so maybe I want to be able to flash it in and do things like that. But we're starting things off with a Thoughtseize stripping away the Hapatra. Now, the idea of the deck is you're low to the ground, evasive, similar to like a Dimir Flash style deck, but also it's running fairies and ninjas because, you know, why not? Basically, if we took a Pauper deck and played it in Modern. On the other side of things, Golgari Yawgmoth has Dredger's Insight. It's basically become the new way to play Yawgmoth. If you're not playing Yawgmoth, you're playing kind of almost like a off-meta, more inconsistent version, or you have to do a little bit more work with it, where cards like this, whenever an artifact or creature leaves your graveyard, you gain a life. And so that means with the Undying triggers, that means with utilizing things like Agatha's Soul Cauldron, like that's good ways to be able to interact and gain some life there. So it also helps offset when you're Undying and being like, all right, Yawgmoth will kill this creature with its sacrifice ability. I'll draw a card, lose a life, and then comes back, I'm net zero. All right, but Thoughtseize after Thoughtseize, but no land drop for Dimir Fairy player here as they try to navigate and set things up. And we got plenty more games to be able to show you guys. Of course, we've got a nice backlog of games and some cool ones in the works to be able to show off. Some Omnath builds, some mono black Necro Dominance, some mono black Reanimators, a really cool twist and update to Indomitable Creativity. A lot of other awesome decks that we're going to be seeing as well. There's a new twist to kind of a Bant Birthing Ritual style deck. So a lot of cool stuff. And then, of course, we have a few more of our games from our 4 seasons event. Hope you guys have been enjoying the commentary of the commentary. I know it's a little bit weird and different to be able to put, but I thought, having the little bit of extra insight, or at least a little bit of the behind-the-scenes type look and discussion, I thought is fun to be able to do, at least to help capture, the events and stuff that happened. And speaking of events, we've got some events coming up that we're really excited to be able to attend and compete in. We've got a charity event that's coming up in April that is going to be Modern 2015. Now, if you have not really heard about this format, for any of you old school players, it's almost known as like pre-fire, is another way to describe it. And it's not pre-modern, because that is a whole different format altogether, which is a very popular one now, one that I'm starting to learn, but I have not, I'll probably start proxying up some decks. I have not pulled the trigger on a deck that I like too much yet, other than just like going, okay, these are fun to, but think about it as a 2015 era format where, the format is essentially capped right before the Kaladesh block and Aether Revolt and things like that. So like Fatal Push is not legal yet in the format, and it's from like early Modern to then. Cons is legal though. So like you get access to a bunch of tools, but like Jund is a thing, all right? Dredge is a thing. Hivemind, Amulet Titan's a thing, but all kinds of cool decks. That was when I was competing and doing well, like got 10th place at a SCG Modern side event. I got day 2 of a GP using like my decks in Modern, but You know, a lot of fun, cool stuff. But yeah, look at this. Infinite. I'm going to make 1,000,000 bugs and kill you here. So we kind of like talk through it all. But basically, with the ability to Walking Ballista, shoot, kill off my young wolf, bring it back, you know, and to sort of keep upticking and doing stuff.
Our gameplay to let you know about our new affiliate with Nerd Gear. Nerdgear.gg/NanMan will take you directly to the website, and as you can see, they've got a bunch of awesome gaming accessories from playmats, life counters with the life tracks, playmat holders, and more. So make sure you do some browsing on the site, find some goodies, and then use the code NGNanMan for 5% off your entire order. But let's get back to our gameplay.
All right, let's get back to the gameplay. So as you saw with that, I kind of like briefly tried to update everybody about what exactly was happening and going on there. But the biggest thing to notice is like because we had the Walking Ballista and we had the Grist there, we were able to go, okay, I can be able to remove this +1 counter, shoot my own creature, it'll die, it'll come back as a new creature essentially, which then I can uptick to make a bug. And then just rinse and repeat until I'm like, well, I got 20 bugs, 25 bugs, however many I need to just finish you off there. So that was basically how our Golgari Yawgmoth player was able to have a very cool setup of like, oh, I only really need like 3 cards essentially with this. 4 if you count the one that's on Agatha's Soul Cauldron. But you get the idea. Dredger's Insight, Young Wolf, Agatha's Soul Cauldron with Grist and Walking Ballista. So 5 cards? I don't know. But anyway, cool little twist that, you know, something that is really interesting because of our Yawgmoth player. She's been playing the deck for so long. She's able to find these lines and know about these lines where, like, if I picked up the deck, that would not have been on my radar. I would have been like, okay, I understand the straightforward elements of this deck. You know, how do I sort of navigate to those specific lines? And it is a deck that definitely rewards players that have played it a lot. And what a trick bind. Hey, let's stifle that fetch, shall we? We're going to counter it, so no, you may not go find a land. Attempt to go do a windswept. That one will not be hit with a trick bind here, but yeah, that's also kind of like we talked about. Is there's one of fun ofs in here. We're going to attempt to do Badgermole Cub, which will be met with a Strix Serenade, turning that cub into a bird here. And did we bring the bird token? No, we failed to prepare for the bird token. So guess what? That is now a flying zombie on the battlefield. I say it all the time. We need to have the infinite tokens, and I've started to carry them in my bag now. But like, I think I just added the Strix Serenade that night. But I have the other tokens. Does that count? You know, bonus points for having the other tokens we need. But Bitter Blossom's going to hit the battlefield. You know, there are ways to remove that as a Golgari player. You know, Pasejus and things like that definitely help, but you know, having some flyers there will also make things a little bit easier. So yeah, it's, you know, very, very cool stuff that we're seeing already. Yep, speaking of Baseju, there it is. All right, so that'll be able to pop that, at least find a land or basic land type. So that's where your surveil lands come in, and we'll get a little bit more information. But already we've doubled up the amount of lands as the Dimir Fairy player here, being able to go through compared to game 1. But our Yawgmoth player is sort of setting up. They've got quite a bit of lands, but not really much additional action. The stuff that they've been trying to do has just sort of been like, no, we're not gonna let you do that. So, and let's do a cheeky peek at the hand, see what we can find. Okay, a decent amount of tools, but I mean, let's be honest here. Like, Dredger's Insight is really powerful, but not really as good as maybe a tutor effect would be. So, we'll be honest, Green Sun Zenith is the one that we want to say, negative Captain, we're going to get rid of that. So, no more allowed. All right, next, fetching up, getting our own surveil land to try to kind of navigate our way out of this. But we saw the hand, and it's like, okay, endurance is not bad. I mean, we've got a threat. We've kind of kept our opponent in check a little bit here, so things are just sort of, oh, a grist is nice. Yeah, we're just basically going to try to look to assemble some tools. I like this, send 2 across. I also don't mind the Dredger's Insight here of trying to go that route, but we're going to try to jam a grist, because if a grist resolved, like, you can run away with the game with a Planeswalker like that. And the fact that if you're like, oh, counter target non-creature spell or something like that, we'll go, guess what? Grist is a creature on the stack. You see the quick check of the graveyard should give you a hint. Snapcaster Mage is going to be coming out in response. We're going to make you a second bird. All right, flashing back, going to get that Strict Serenade out of the grave. Somebody ran into the table there. You see the camera shake? I don't know. We also have been adjusting where we've been, setting up at the shop, which has been one of the things that has been good and bad. We've lost a couple of gameplay footage over the last couple of weeks of, sadly, the whiteout glare that has popped up when we've sat here and been like, oh, the light in that one particular spot basically just whited out our players' cards. And just one of the players, not both, just one. And so you go, well, that's not going to help us. That's not going to work. So sadly, some of that has been depleted, and we've lost some of our gameplay. But we've still got plenty of other awesome games, because we do have gameplay content for you every Monday and Thursday, as well as the Saturday stuff. Right? We've got end of the month is going to be our other format stuff. So we've got a legacy gameplay to show you guys at the end of this month. Okay, so this is still the Death Shadow build. All right, I couldn't remember if this one was. So we've got legacy at the end of the month, and then, of course, our MTGO at the beginning Saturday of every month. And then I think after that, we'll see what's the next. Is it going to be Pioneer? Is it going to be, the no ban list Modern? Is it going to be 2015 Modern? Are we going to see some Dan? What are we going to see? Who knows? Young Wolf's going to try to come out. Spellstutter Sprite is going to put a stop to it. Again, Pauper Fairies, anybody? So it's going to be tough to kind of navigate. This definitely is that back and forth so far in this matchup of okay, game one felt very much Golgari player was in control, them going first, and the Fairy player not really being able to hit a land. But now it's the other way around. Our Fairy player has gotten all of the tools here, trick binds and counter spells and strict serenades to sort of run things through right now. But we just are sort of staring each other down right now. 2/2 birds, a 1/1 Spellstutter Sprite, a 2/1 Snapcaster Mage, and currently a 2/2 Death Shadow, which is going to come across here. So we'll block and then switch it up to a double block. And we'll do Dismember, lose 4 life, and then eat the other one off with the, of course, Death Shadow there. And then big growing here, jumping the Death Shadow up to a 6/6. So nice little leap there. Badger Mole Cub going to come out in response. Can we assemble something else? Okay, Grist is nice. This allows us to at least kill the Death Shadow. And yeah, whenever you're Badger Mole Cub, if you have a Surveil land, always try to go for the Surveil land as your land of choice, because if it dies, it comes back, you get to be able to get some more information, get that extra Surveil. But Spellstutter Sprite will make quick work of the Grist, and now it's sort of just Snapcaster Mage and Badger Mole Cub sitting there staring each other down. But Yawgmoth is a nice way to try to set things up here. Do some trading, get rid of some resources. Because, again, Yawgmoth needs something else to be able to sack. Death Shadow coming out here. And now, again, Yawgmoth is going to be trying to assemble some tools to draw some cards. That's the kind of goal. Oh, did you see that? Hapatra. So that is really powerful, really high synergy with Yawgmoth, because when -1 counter goes onto a creature, you make a snake, and you basically have the fuel that you need in order to okay, sorry. It's in order to try to kind of just go, right? I'll make a snake. But we attempt to do a fetch to try to get a Dryad Arbor there, and the response was Shadow of Doubt. You may not search your library, and I will draw a card here. Let's just sort of blanket that. So the Yawgmoth player had already started to do some searching, and was just like a little bit of a like, oh wait, hold on, I am responding. You know, no big deal. It's you know, locals. We're hanging out. We're playing. It's not a doesn't have to be too serious when we're just kind of hanging out. But it is something to kind of make note of like, you know, there would have been like judge calls and things like that, but we don't have to worry about that at the moment. Another attempt for an endurance here is going to be met with a counter spell. And this is sometimes the frustrating thing that happens when you're playing, you know, against a blue deck where it's just like counter spell, you know, attempt to Green Sun Zenith met with another Shadow of Doubt, and it's just like, does this still get shuffled in? And technically, yes, it does. You don't get a search, but this still will be shuffled because the spell resolves. All right. But yeah, it's just the sort of like, okay, well, does this resolve? No? Okay. All right. Sauron's Ransom, basically Factor Fiction, and then we're going to have the ring tempt us here. So we're going to be trying to set ourselves up. And yeah, it's just like, all right, cool. We'll scoop it up here. We're not going to let that happen. Yeah, like so much interaction there. We'll just go to game 3. All right, Dimir Faeries mulliganing, always a good sign when you're on the play and your opponent has to drop down a card at least, because then that's like, well, so you're saying there's a chance. So you're saying that my ability to cut the deck is awesome right now. I mean, sometimes that's enough, right? Sometimes there is the fail rate of a deck in that sense of like, well, I have been shuffling, I've been cutting, I'm just not able to find the tools. I have too many lands, not enough lands, you know, whatever sort of clumping action that could be taking place there. So now, if you're interested in seeing some more discussion related to shuffling, make sure you guys check out our last 4 seasons video that featured the Sultai Living End versus the Storm player from the 4 Seasons tournament in Italy there. We did the commentary for that. A little bit of a cheating scandal. I'm sure you guys heard of, but I know that happened. But Delighted Halfling is what's going to be happening here in this game, met with a Thoughtseize as we get to take a cheeky peek at the hand. And what are we seeing? Anything worthwhile? Pretty good stuff to be able to keep here. You know, Ignoble Hierarch, a little bit more extra ramp. The, you know, Court of Calling is very nice. Yawgmoth is very scary. So there's this, like, decision-making moment here of going, okay, there are Shadow of Doubts. There are ways to deal with the Chord. Can't really Chord now unless you're going to be Chording for something like for 0, essentially, and get, like, a land. Yawgmoth is tough. But if you get Yawgmoth to resolve, you could be able to chord for even more powerful stuff later. And the kind of later the game goes on, the more powerful chord becomes as a toolbox to answer some of the difficult things that might come out. But all right. Ramp, ramp, ramp is the name of the game for our Yawgmoth player. And Bitter Blossom lands on the table, attempting to start draining our life and making some 1/1 fairies here. Will it be effective and enough? We'll see. But Yawgmoth meaning, hey, you're tapping out on your turn 2, and you don't even have double blue. So, yeah, let's do this. And then we're going to go with a Beseiju to blow up your ability to generate those tokens. I wanted to say Lingering Souls there. It's how, like, token brain I was for a moment there. Which, you know, we were talking about that 2015 format. You can play Lingering Souls in that. Like, there was Abzan lists that existed. There was also just like black-white tokens was a deck that players would run back in the day. Not the most powerful, but a ton of fun. I loved playing it. I still will sometimes sleeve up Lingering Souls, like especially in my black-white discard like 8-rack deck that I've got. All right, jumped up our land count though very quickly. All right, strategic betrayal is going to get used. So opponent will sack a creature. Our opponent will exile a creature they control and then their graveyard. You know, I always sort of in my brain go pick a creature to sacrifice, and then we're going to exile your graveyard afterward. But really, it's a little bit different in that regard. Soul Cauldron's going to come down, and it says, of course, Yawgmoth is already here, and Delighted Halfling will help us to sort of cast that without being able to have it be countered. And Yawgmoth just going to bring the beats here. We popped our Nurturing paid land to draw a card. Because, again, we're sort of we have all the tools. We just need that next little bit to really just lock out the game here as the Yawgmoth player. But our Fairy player is sort of land go mode here. And now we're going to start eating some of the cards. We saw the Snapcaster, so we know that being able to eat some of these potential flashback things is going to be a bit of a challenge. But we see a Surveil land, sees a land on top. We're going to pitch that because, again, we just need creatures in the creature deck, please. All right, land go mode. But Death Shadow is going to be popping out now. And passing the turn. Only a 2/2. Okay, found a creature. Bring the beats. So this is this window. It's do we do some blocking or not? All right, so we're going to be sacking this to try to put a -1 counter on the Death Shadow. In response, we're going to try to fetch, which is going to grow the Death Shadow already. Now the question is, how much do we want to grow? Looks like we're going to lose 2 more after that, dropping to 8, growing the Death Shadow to a 5/5. Enough to be able to eat the Yawgmoth here. And then, yeah, the -1 counter is there. There we go. We switched the white dice to an actual -1 counter, which if you're interested in picking up any +1 or -1 counters, nerdgear.gg/nanman can help you get to that. Badger Bolt Cub going to attempt to get played. Nope. Counterspell will say not today. So a 5/5, technically 4/4 right now. Thoughtseize. Oh, okay. Another Soul Cauldron, but that one's signed. And this grows our Death Shadow. 7/7, aka 6/6, because there is a plus and minus counter. Well, sorry, there's a minus counter on it, and that's it. I'm marking. There's not actually 7 dice like counters on the creature. It only has that there to help the viewers at home to see how big and scary the Death Shadow is. Yeah, I don't the Fairy deck's fun, but it definitely runs out of gas. I've noticed being sort of just so mid-rangey stuff like that. But I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to be able to play. I was running Riddlers in there for a little bit, which I've since taken out and put into a different deck. I can't even remember what deck it's in, but I've been building so many different decks lately and doing all kinds of stuff, prepping to do some more versus videos almost coming up on the channel is the plan. We're going to see how we can do with it. This deck versus this deck. Now, we don't have every deck built because that would be crazy. Who would do such a thing? But we've got a lot of them. And there's a lot of people at the shop that also have really powerful and fun decks. So we could do some of those. We also got some really other exciting and fun videos planned. A little bit of a deck tech style or deck upgrading building that's going to be happening. So yeah, definitely some cool stuff planned as we get closer and closer to the summertime, where there is a little bit more availability and a little bit more chances to make some awesome content for y'all. Oh, somebody else bumped into the table there. Stop banging into my tables. All right, so we see the shifting woodlands, though. That's going to be sort of the line that it looks like we're going for here of trying to make something happen. But Nihel's Spellbomb might put a stop to that altogether. So we could be able to sack that, pay it black, and draw a card off it. But bring the beats. Just kidding. All right, attempting to do the Agatha Soul Cauldron. That's going to be met with that. And because of Nihil Spellbomb left, we can push, and the Yawgmoth will die there. All right, Yawgmoth player goes Badger Mole Cub. Where's the Surveil Land? Get the Surveil Land. No, Basic Forest. Surveil Land. Always Surveil Land. Maybe not. The fact that, you know, I don't know. Maybe the extra Surveil is not as worth it, but I feel like it is, right? Because you could be like, I can make a green and a black, or you can make double green. I don't know. Push is going to go there in response to attempting to put a counter on it. Now, there still is a blocker. So we might not die here. Yeah. Yeah, again, so Surveil there. That's what we were looking like. If it came back as a Surveil land, that land we would have drawn, would have been in the graveyard. What's the next card? Can we see the next card? Probably not. But look at those. I like the land choices and the art style that has been picked by our Yawgmoth player. She's got some sweet ones there, but tough spot to be in where you're just like, hey, I got flooded. I'm running like a, 20 land deck or something like that. I don't remember how many lands she's running, but, definitely a tough spot to be in. We're just like, dang. But lots of cards brought in here we see for our fairy player. Lots of sort of, we talk about the dangers of over sideboarding, but in some cases where you're just like, I'm just sort of adjusting what tools that I have available. All right, what am I going to use here to bring in? But hope you guys enjoyed that one. A little bit of a shorter, faster one, 30-minute game for you to be enjoyed compared to some of those hour-long ones we've been putting up lately. But that's going to do it for us here today. Thanks so much for tuning and watching, y'all, and I'll see you all next game.